In a small village nestled in the rolling hills of the countryside, there lived two gardeners, Emma and Ryan. They both had beautiful gardens filled with vibrant flowers and delicious vegetables. The villagers would often stroll by their gardens, admiring the beauty and tranquility of the carefully tended plots. Emma's garden was a marvel of organization and precision. Every plant was labeled and arranged according to its species and growth habits. Her flowers were always perfectly pruned, and her vegetables were always neatly rowed. Emma took great pride in her garden and spent hours every day tending to it. Ryan's garden, on the other hand, was a bit more chaotic. His plants were arranged in a more free-form manner with flowers and vegetables intermingled. His garden was a riot of color and texture, with plants spilling over the edges of their beds and winding their way up trellises. Ryan loved his garden just as much as Emma loved hers, but he had a more relaxed approach to gardening. Despite their differences, both Emma and Ryan were passionate about gardening and spent every spare moment tending to their plots. However, as time went on, Emma began to feel a growing sense of discontent. She couldn't help but compare her garden to Ryan's, and she always seemed to come up short. "Ryan's roses are redder than mine," she would think to herself as she gazed over the fence at his garden. "His tomatoes are bigger than mine," she would lament as she surveyed her own vegetable patch. As a result of her constant comparing, Emma became increasingly unhappy with her own garden. She started to neglect it, spending less and less time tending to her plants. She would let weeds grow, and her flowers would go unwatered. Her garden, once a source of pride and joy, began to wither and die. Ryan, on the other hand, remained blissfully unaware of Emma's struggles. He continued to tend to his garden with love and care, experimenting with new techniques and trying out different varieties of plants. His garden flourished under his attention, becoming more vibrant and beautiful with each passing day. One day, a wise old gardener came to visit the village. He had spent his life tending to gardens all over the world and had gained a deep understanding of the art of gardening. As he walked through the village, he noticed Emma's neglected garden and Ryan's thriving one. He stopped in front of Emma's garden and shook his head sadly. "What happened here?" he asked. Emma, who was sitting on a bench, staring at her garden with tears in her eyes. "I don't know," Emma replied, sighing. "I just can't seem to make my garden as beautiful as Ryan's." The wise old gardener nodded thoughtfully. "I see," he said. "You are suffering from a bad case of comparisonitis." "Yes," the wise old gardener replied. "It's a disease that afflicts many gardeners. They spend so much time comparing their gardens to others that they forget to enjoy their own." Emma thought about this for a moment. She realized that the wise old gardener was right. She had been so focused on comparing her garden to Ryan's that she had forgotten to enjoy her own. "What can I do to cure myself of comparisonitis?" Emma asked the wise old gardener. The wise old gardener smiled. "It's simple," he said. "Just focus on your own garden. Don't compare it to anyone else's. Instead, concentrate on making it the best it can be." Emma took the wise old gardener's words to heart. She started to focus on her own garden rather than comparing it to Ryan's. She spent hours every day tending to her plants, experimenting with new techniques, and trying out different varieties of flowers and vegetables. As she worked, Emma found that her garden began to flourish once again. Her flowers bloomed, her vegetables grew, and her garden became a haven of beauty and tranquility. Emma was overjoyed. She realized that the wise old gardener had been right. Comparison was the thief of joy. By focusing on her own garden, rather than comparing it to others, she had found happiness and fulfillment. From that day on, Emma and Ryan became good friends. They would often meet at the fence that separated their gardens and talk about their latest gardening projects. Emma would admire Ryan's roses, and Ryan would admire Emma's vegetables. But Emma never again felt the need to compare her garden to Ryan's. Make and imagine it. Emma never again felt the need to compare her garden to Ryan's. Instead, she focused on making her own garden the best it could be. And in doing so, she found true happiness and fulfillment. Moral of the story: comparison is the thief of joy. Focus on your own journey and celebrate your own unique successes. Don't compare yourself to others. Instead, concentrate on making yourself the best.